conversations would be. I am so glad that you decided to join me tonight every Wednesday from at 6:30 Central Standard Time. First off, before we kick this off, I would like to thank my sponsor, B. Anderson Collection, a luxury lipstick line that wants you to live life in color. You can go to www.brandydanderson.com and you can go and look and see about purchasing your bow lip today. Also, I want to shout out Gracie, my nail tech, which she was on a couple of episodes ago. Shout out to her. She's always making sure my hands look good. And also, shout out to Hair from Scratch, who is Aquila Hill, located in DeSoto, Texas, making custom wigs and making women feel beautiful. So, shout out to those two women because they always making sure I'm looking great. Okay. Anyways, I am so excited for my special guest today. We have here Dr. Jodi Nicholson, honey. A long. We'll have that's another episode to talk
Yes,
about how we even know each other. But
yes.
but let me introduce Dr. Jodi Nicholson. She is a licensed professional counselor with over 10 years of experience in mental health field. Her clinical experience includes working with individuals with mental health concerns, life and work, stress, victims of domestic violence, trauma survivors, and I'm going to probably say this wrong. I'm going to
Mhm.
jack this, maternal mental health.
Yeah.
She also is a former adjunct professor at Grand Canyon University in the counseling program. Her
Mhm.
private practice is located in the DFW area, south of Fort Worth, Texas. Y'all, I want to introduce to y'all Dr. Jodi Nicholson. Jodi, I am so glad that you are here.
Yeah.
You're
Thanks
just
for
an
having me.
amazing person, and I've seen you grown. Like when we spoke, I talked about how much you have grown. So I am like so super proud of you. But I want my audience to know a little bit about you outside of your bio.
Hmm.
Um, Wanted to hear like why a licensed counselor?
Yes. Yeah. So I get that question often. I get it from clients and just people in general when they hear about what I do. And I feel like I always give like this very canned answer of, well, I want to be a counselor because I want to help people. But when I really think about what my real why is, I
Yeah.
think it connects back to wanting to understand my own mental health issues that I've dealt with. And so and becoming a licensed professional counselor, you learn a lot about the different diagnoses, and that also I think prompted me to start to do a lot of self discovery. Of course, I've been through my own therapy as well, and so I think at the root of it, the reason that I became a counselor is because I wanted to learn more about my own mental health and wellness and how to really manage that in a healthy way. So I'm in a position where I get to help clients how to manage their own mental and wellness, but also and to be able to normalize it. I will share often with my clients that at one point that none of us are immune from experiencing mental health issues. And so just trying to normalize that and make it okay to not be okay so that they can be able to get the help that they need is my big reason for doing what I do.
You said make it to not be okay.
Make it okay to
Wow.
not be okay. Yeah.
Make it okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
What a way to normalize, not being okay. What a bold statement. You said something throughout your vulnerable, more open why, and you said your own mental health.
Mhm.
And so I think sometimes the misconception is therapists are helping other people. Are they getting therapy too?
Uh-huh.
And so I want you to share a little bit of like how you decided to go into therapy for yourself.
Yeah. You mean getting my being a client myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really just dealing with, life issues. I would say my primary underlying thing that I've dealt with throughout my life is anxiety. I didn't really know it was anxiety until I, went to school and started understanding what anxiety looked like. In my mind, anxiety was you're having a panic attack, you're hyperventilating. So, really understanding that there are other signs and symptoms of anxiety. There are different types of anxiety that you can experience. Helped me to understand what I myself was dealing with and led me to go and seek counseling on how to deal with that. So that was really kind of the door open to me going to get my own help. And I recommend all therapists at some point in their life, well, all people in general, to do therapy. It's very beneficial. You don't have to be in crisis to seek therapy. There are different reasons that people go, but I do think it's important, just like we go to doctors for our physicals and we go and get dental checkups. It's important that we also prioritize our mental health in that same way.
Doing a mental health checkup,
Yes.
pretty much. It's
Yeah.
probably not once a year in every
No.
6 months, but
Yeah.
need to do
At
a
some
mental.
point.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said something else that I want us to dig into just a little bit. And I know we're getting a little sidetracked, and I told you I was going to ask you
Oh,
questions as we
yeah.
spoke. But you said that there are different types of anxiety. So I've never heard that before. So, what are the different forms of anxiety that maybe a woman is going to come across this video
Hmm.
and say, "Oh my gosh, that's me right now. I was
Hmm.
wondering like why I was feeling this way and not recognizing it all along it was anxiety." So,
Right.
what are the different types of anxiety?
Yeah. So the most common or general one is like your general anxiety, where it's not specific to one particular thing. You have anxiety about a number of different things. So that's one general anxiety disorder. You can also have specific anxieties or specific phobias. So that's a different subset. And then you can also have post traumatic stress disorder, which is usually related to some type of trauma. So that's another type of anxiety,
Mm.
as well as obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. So you may obsess or ruminate on certain things that then would lead you to compulsive behavior like checking or hand washing, those sorts of behaviors that, again, can produce anxiety for an individual. So those are some of the different types of anxiety that one might experience. But most people, I say the general population, it tends to be a more of a general anxiety disorder.
Okay. I didn't know that. I
Mhm.
did not know. So I'm assuming that's PTSD
Mhm.
is categorized as a anxiety. I didn't, I just
Mhm.
never thought about that in OCD. I
Uh-huh.
know a person who is almost like a germaphobe, like
Mhm.
gotta wash them hands constantly, hand sanitizer. I mean, now due to COVID, like I think all
Right.
of us experienced some OCD for
Yes.
sure. We was on anxiety high, whatever
Yes.
level that could possibly be. We were on that, but she was like that even before COVID. So
Mhm.
not recognizing. So okay, so to that point, to that end, how would somebody be able to recognize that they are experiencing anxiety? I know that's the type, but what are some of the, I don't know what the word is. Is it qualities or things that would help somebody identify if they're experiencing some sort of anxiety?
Right. So anxiety in the in the basic sense is our body's nervous system is being activated. It's responding to something. So I would first say, check in with your body and see what you're noticing. Are you noticing a change in your heart rate? Are you noticing a change in your breathing? Are your hands feeling clammy? There are signs that your body will tell you that your nervous system is being activated. That could be a symptom of anxiety.
Mm.
It's getting ready to go into a fight or flight mode. And that may be necessary if there is an actual threat, but usually if it's anxiety, your body will have that sort of response when it's not necessary, when there is no actual, threat, but it's activated, it's going to respond in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Some other signs outside of listening to what your body's telling you. Are you noticing any changes in your sleep? A lot of times people who experience anxiety, they will have sleep disturbances where they have trouble falling asleep at night, usually because they've just got this racing thoughts that they can't quiet their thoughts. They may wake up in the middle of the night, so they're not getting a full night's rest. Also, anxiety can affect appetite. Typically, when most people, I'll say most, it can go either way. Some people will see a decrease in their appetite, and others will experience an increase. So it just really depends on the person. But those are some signs or cues that may indicate there may be some anxiety going on. So may be a prompt to either reach out to a therapist or reach out to your primary care doctor. A lot of primary care doctors now are being trained to identify and assess for mental health conditions, and they can treat them medication wise and or refer you to a specialist if they feel like that's something that would benefit you.
Okay. Okay. So this makes me think. So Jodi, that was Dr. Jodi, that was really good. This makes me think about how important is it for a woman of color to have a woman of color therapist?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would, like, how important is that? And what effect could it have if there if this woman, this black or Hispanic woman, Indian woman,
Mm-hmm.
Asian woman, would that they end up getting a therapist that is of, you know, Caucasian. Let
Mm-hmm.
me say that.
Mm-hmm.
A white person.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it for us as women, women of
Mm-hmm.
color, to pick a black therapist?
Yeah. So I'm going to speak from, I guess, my own personal experience, because I
Okay.
think that answer could vary depending on who you ask. I think at the root of it for me, being able to see someone that looks like me, there is that sense of safety and comfort. When I say safety, I
Mhm.
mean like emotional safety. And
Okay.
there's that sense of cultural understanding and context to maybe some of the issues that I am bringing to counseling. I think all counselors, regardless of ethnicity or race, we are part of our education, our licensure is that we take classes on uh, multicultural counseling so that we are educated and equipped to treat someone whether they're in our culture or not. And then we also are required to take CEUs when we renew our license to continue being educated on treating various cultures. So I would say that all clinicians have that responsibility to be educated and to operate from a lens of cultural humility, meaning that I am doing my work to understand your culture and how you're presenting your mental health issues, what that means in your culture.
Mhm.
Because there are some cultural beliefs and practices that, if they're not looked at in the context of that person's culture, they can be misdiagnosed. So
Mm.
it's important to have context based on that person's culture when you're treating them. So for me, it's important, for the reasons that I stated.
Yeah.
For someone else, that may not be, at the top of their list. But most of the clients that seek me, which I have a mix, but I do have clients who they feel like they can be themselves, they can be authentic. And
Yeah.
that's really important to the counseling process. If you've got walls up or you're guarded and you don't feel safe being vulnerable, then we're not able to really do the work that we need to do. So I have clients say, it was important for me to find a therapist that looks like me, for those reasons. So there is a lot of value in that for people.
So thank you for that, because I know that many women, and many women, especially Black women who are watching this today or will watch the replay or whatever, um, they're asking themselves that,
Yeah.
like, and so I want to follow up with that on asking what, when we go in looking for a therapist, like, what are some, what are, because this is a relationship, okay, like
Absolutely.
me and my therapist has a relationship,
Yes.
and she called me out on something one day, and I was like, girl, you right, like,
Huh?
she becomes this homegirl to me, but which lets the guard down, vulnerability, being
Hmm.
open and be authentically yourself.
Yeah.
So for someone who's watching who is on the line of like picking a therapist, because I had a friend who was like, well, I don't know if I like her, and it was like switching back and forth, like, what are some things that we need to be asking ourselves when we're trying to pick our therapist?
Yeah. Um, I guess maybe just asking yourself what it is that you want to get out of this therapist client relationship. What is it that you're needing? I've had clients that have said, I need someone who can be direct with me. I need someone who's going to give me homework assignments. I'm going to give someone that is going to challenge me. So really kind of thinking about what it is that you're wanting out of this, counselor therapist relationship and starting from there. Some clients don't know that going into, especially if they've never been to counseling before, they don't know what to expect.
Hmm.
So sometimes it is okay, let me try and see if this fits. And if it doesn't, giving yourself permission to seek therapy somewhere else. And as therapists, we appreciate clients being able to say, hey, I don't think this is going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And we can work through that or help refer to someone who may be a better fit for them. So therapy is definitely not a one size fit all, just like any relationship.
Yeah.
So, just kind of trying to see what it is you want out of the therapy relationship. And if you're not sure what that is, giving yourself permission to find someone else if you recognize it's not a fit.
I'm so glad that you said that, Jody, because girl, I remember having a conversation with someone, and after going to see a counselor after my trauma that I
Hmm.
had, and then going back into therapy about a second time. I think this is my third or fourth time going back into therapy. And I remember having about my third or fourth time having the moment of, you know what I want? I want to be, like you said, I want to be challenged. Give me homework, dig
Hmm.
deeper, ask me more questions. Like, don't take me at face value. Like, there's
Yeah.
something there. I know it is. But I didn't know that going into first, of course, like the fight or flight, my
Hmm.
first trauma experience, very traumatizing.
Yeah.
I was in that mode. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't even want to be there.
Yeah.
So I felt like I just need to move on, and this will go away. But it wasn't that. So I didn't know to ask those questions. Even second time go around, I didn't know to ask that. But I
Hmm.
knew I didn't know to say that, but I knew going through two different therapists, the second round of going to therapy, I recognized, like, y'all not asking me enough. Like, that's when I uncovered those were the things that I needed. So when I finally got to my last therapist, the therapist I have now, I was like, listen,
Hmm.
homegirl, sis,
Yeah.
all the things. Like, I need you. If I say I cried when my daddy did that, girl, ask me why.
Right.
Ask me 1,000 times why. Like, dig deeper. I need to know why
Hmm.
this thing is bothering me.
Right.
And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's important for women to know that when they're going into therapy. So let's talk a little bit about, let's kind of shift a little bit.
Hmm.
You being a therapist, and we're talking about women's mental health. What are some of the common themes that you hear from women regarding women's mental health?
Right. So, I do treat, as you mentioned in my bio, maternal mental health. So I have a lot of clients come with stress around trying to get pregnant or infertility issues, or dealing with anxiety or depression during pregnancy or postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the issues that I experience or that I deal with. Also, women who are trying to just balance the multiple roles that they assume, as wife, mother, employee, daughter, sister, you name it, trying to fill all these roles and trying to balance that, and really feeling like they're not doing enough, feeling inadequate. Those tend to be the main issues, as well as clients who have, you know, unresolved traumas that are now um, surfacing, as
Mm-hmm.
they resurface at various times, but oftentimes I see clients as they're getting ready to transition to another phase of life. So they're getting ready to get married, or they're getting ready to have a baby, or talk about becoming a parent. Then they start thinking about their own life experiences, and some of that unresolved trauma starts to come up to the surface. So those are the main issues that I tend to see with the women clients that I see in my practice.
So how do you, like, how, for the woman who's watching, what type of forms can childhood trauma show up?
Yeah. So one of the main ways that it can show up, of course, is in, we talked about the post traumatic stress. So if someone is triggered, you can start seeing those symptoms where maybe they are starting to have some panic. Maybe they are starting to have what we call trauma reenactments. So they may start acting out in their relationships,
Mm,
and reenacting some of the traumas they experienced earlier.
mhm.
It can also show up in their attachment styles. So there's different attachment styles we have in relationships. Secure, anxious, and avoidant are the main three.
What was
Um,
the main 3 again?
secure, uh, secure, avoidant, and
Okay.
anxious attachments, which our attachment styles are developed, in our early childhood, um, with our mainly because the mother is the primary caregiver in the beginning, but with our moms, and then of course with the other parent, depending on their involvement in sharing those responsibilities and caregiving, as well as in boundaries and codependency. I see a lot of clients who have unresolved traumas who have really poor boundaries and
Mhm,
get in these people pleasing roles where
mhm.
they believe that they need to sacrifice their own well being and their own wellness to make others happy. Those are some of the ways that unresolved trauma can show up for people.
Mm, wow. Let's talk about this. I have so many things, girl. I can go so many different places. Like, I'm thinking about the roles that us moms play. So let's just start there. Let's start there, because
Okay.
I want to circle back to the different type of attachment styles. But let's talk about the roles of being, my show is focused on motherhood, womanhood,
Mhm.
wifehood. So when we think about these roles that we play, what are some of the common themes that you hear from women when it comes to them identifying themselves to these roles and the
Okay.
stress that comes in whatever comes with it? Like, I don't want to call it stress. I don't want to give it an identifier, but
Mhm.
whatever comes with it.
Okay. Repeat the question. Let me make sure I understand.
So we play these roles as a
Mhm.
mom, wife, and just a woman in general.
Mhm.
What are some of the common themes that you hear from women when it
Mhm.
comes to identity?
Mhm.
Identifying and breaking I identify with what I do
Mhm.
versus I am a whole human person.
Right. Yeah.
What are some of the conversations that you're hearing women
Mhm.
how they're dealing with that?
Right. I think the main thing, and I'll share a little bit about my own experience as well, is that you hear a lot of women who have lost their sense of identity. They've
Yeah.
lost the sense of who they are in fulfilling these other roles. At, one point they had dreams of their own, they had goals of their own,
Mm,
and
wow.
those have been, forgotten or placed on the back burner or just abandoned altogether because of these other roles. And so,
Yeah.
just in sharing my own experience, um, it took me, almost 10 years. I almost had to start over again, but I said, no, I'm not doing that, to complete my doctorate, because in the last part of my schooling, I got married. So I focused on becoming a wife.
Yeah.
Then that year, I had my first child. I literally was in the middle of research and found out I was pregnant, put a pause on that, focused
Yeah.
on being a mom, left school for a while, had another child. And what I found is that I loved being a wife, I loved being a mom, but I needed to return to those goals and those dreams that I had that were still within me. Like, I would literally have dreams about, not finishing school, or I didn't have an assignment completed. I knew that was that inner voice saying, you've got to finish with what you started. And I really believe that because I returned to that dream, I completed what I started, that I am a happier person because I have an identity. I have something that I do that's outside of those other roles. I have something that's just for me. And I think that's important for women to have, whether it be your job or a hobby. I think you're a great example of that, Brandy. With your B. Anderson experience, having something that you're passionate about that
Mhm.
is just for you. It's not about, any of the other roles that you do. It's just for you. I think that's important that we as women all have that. And so that's one of the things that I try and encourage my clients to identify. What is a dream or a passion that you have
Mm.
that's just focused on you and not these other roles that you can pursue so that you can regain that identity.
I don't know if you can share this in your own story, Jodi, but when you got to that place, or if there is a woman that is in that position, how was that conversation with your spouse? Because there's somebody's spouse that's not being receptive of that.
Yeah.
They decide to achieve the dreams, continue to do the things, and they're non-responsive. They're not very supportive.
Hmm.
So, what did that conversation look like, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very fortunate. My husband is very supportive. I told him that this was a dream I had before he ever came in the picture.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like I was already on this path. You already knew this about me. So,
come
and he
on.
was, yeah. So, you knew
Yeah,
this about me when we got married. So he was very supportive, but I also had to communicate to him what pursuing this goal, what it meant I needed from him. So
yeah,
that means I need you to step up in these areas to help with the kids, to help with the household things so that I can have the time and attention and focus. So, what
Yeah.
I would tell clients to do is have that conversation with your significant other. Be specific about what you need and how you need them to support you.
Mhm.
Um, and also identify other areas of support. My husband wasn't my only support system.
Mm.
And so it's important that we have as much support, as we can get. You can never have too much support, I believe, as women or just in general. So being able to really firm up your support system and um, be committed to pursuing, the goal or the passion it is that you want to pursue.
That's good. Communication is key for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
So, Jodi, what about the woman who's listening? Or have you ever had a client where their spouse wasn't supportive, even after all the things communicating? Here's how I need you to show up for me.
Right.
Here's what I need you to do to help support me. Because let's just think about if the woman wasn't pursuing at the time, she had this dream before then, but now, due to marriage or work life transitioning over into a different phase in her life, she uncovers like this has been sitting here and now I want to do something about it.
Yeah.
But now this person that you're with is just like, well, um, I know you talked about it, but dang, like all of
Mhm.
how have you ever had any clients who had to deal with that
Mhm.
and like what did they have to do to overcome that, or what are some situations where it was just like I don't know.
Yeah. So in addition to trying to identify other support, I have an honest conversation with the client with how much do you want this goal? How much do you want
Mm,
this thing that you're trying to pursue? Um, do you see yourself doing this in the absence of the support that you would like to have from your husband, but you're not getting?
mhm.
And if so, what does that look like? It may look a little different. It may take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So kind of really trying to reimagine what the goal can look like
Mhm.
instead of just abandoning it altogether because maybe you don't have the support that you would like to have from your spouse.
No, that's really good. I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm sure that will bless some woman when she comes across it, because I'm sure that that's real. You know what I mean? As a woman, and even as a man who may come in with hopes and dreams and a
Hmm.
dream of like doing certain things, and it can be reversed. Like this
Yeah.
woman is just like, "What you mean? You want to open up a food truck and sell
Yeah.
tacos?" Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be funny just because it's here, Hispanic heritage, much saying tacos. I just like tacos.
I love tacos too.
Okay, so don't be
Yeah.
coming over here with all of that in the comments. I don't want to
Yeah.
hear it. But yeah, so thinking about that sometimes that can be that's a vulnerable conversation.
It is.
And
And
I think
something,
go ahead.
okay, I was going to say another thing too that someone may also explore is maybe finding a mentor. So if there's someone that is doing or has expertise or knowledge in what you want to do,
Yeah.
finding a mentor that can help support you through that as well. But you were saying something. Right.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, just that, just to know that it's going to be quite the opposite. It's not going to always be the woman who has this dream. It can be the man who has this dream. Like I've
Yeah.
met women who are married to husbands that have ambitious,
Hmm.
wanting to, there it is a true story of opening a food truck. Another one is I want to be a chef, things like that.
Hmm.
And there was a little bit of resistance from the spouse, but
Hmm.
here was my thought was I think it's important to share that as much as possible, either in pockets when you're dating, but also in the beginning stages of marriage. Like,
Hmm.
it's a simple question of like, what is your vision for your life?
Right.
Like, to uncover like where did they see themselves without you before they
Right.
even, to your point, before before I even got with you, this is something I wanted to do anyways. And so how do
Right.
you articulate that to this person and to know if they're even going to support you in it. It may
Yeah.
not always be financially, it may be emotionally or supportive in other spaces.
Hmm.
Um, So I think that's really, really, really good. I want to talk a little bit about so as women are, dealing with stress, anxiety, identity in these different roles, what are I know we talked about like the importance of self-care because that plays a part into um identity,
Mhm.
stress, manage it, like the proper way of managing these things because these things are not going to go away. They're
Right.
here.
Yeah.
But the difference is how you look at them and how you manage them. So what are some ways that as women that we can do one self-care, and how
Mhm.
do we manage the varieties of stress that we're dealing with?
Yeah. So self-care in its basic definition is engaging in activities that kind of help you recharge, or we use the metaphor, fill your cup up.
Yeah.
So things that are you're going to do for yourself, they don't involve anyone else. So that can look like a lot of different things. Uh, Basic levels of self-care: are you getting adequate sleep? Are you getting proper nutrition? Are you getting adequate physical exercise? We were talking about that, before we started tonight. Yes, those are your basic activities of self-care that you can incorporate and hopefully should be doing on a regular basis. And then self-care can go beyond that. It can be lighting a candle, or taking a shower, a bubble bath, or doing something that you enjoy that feels like restorative for
Mm.
you. There's different types of self-care, actually. There's physical self-care, there's
Mhm.
emotional self-care. So physical, we talked about nutrition, sleep, exercise. Are you, going to your well womans? Are you taking care of yourself physically? Emotional self-care. Are you checking in with your feelings? How are you processing those? Do you have an
Mhm.
outlet for that? Whether it's, talking to someone about your feelings, journaling, seeing a therapist. Um, there's financial self-care. Are
Mhm.
you saving? Are you or are you build, creating more debt for yourself? Like, what are you doing to better position yourself financially? Are you budgeting? And then there's spiritual self-care. So
Mhm.
what are you doing to take care of your spiritual wellness and well-being? Are you attending a church service? Are you doing a devotional, reading, prayer, meditation? So those are the different types of self-care. So self-care is multifaceted. It's not just about
Yeah.
any one thing. It's not just pedicures. In fact, I tell people, if the pedicure is costing you, because we talked about that financial self-care,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're overspending, that's out of your budget, then that's not really self-care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talking about the different ways, that self-care can look like. Think it makes it feel more accessible to people, because I hear a lot from women, well, I just don't have time, or I have all this, other things, when really on those basic levels, again, are you eating nutritional foods, getting adequate sleep, getting some exercise, physical exercise, at least 30 minutes a day. At those base levels, if you're doing that, then you are engaging in some sort of self-care.
I like how you said that self-care is it's restorative.
Yes.
And so because the cliche right now is self-care, 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 and no
Yeah.
shade to the woman that's running around talking about, girl, you need self-care, go get your nails done, go get your toes done, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
No shade to the person, but the reality of it is that there is restorative. It is beyond just going to go get the pedicure. It is beyond going to go get your hair done. Do
Yeah.
these things make you feel good and it gives you a boost of something?
Right.
Absolutely. I'm not even gonna lie about that, honey. I done bought my whole listen. I'm going to go see Beyonce and I done bought my hair. And
Okay.
listen, it,
Uh,
it it brought me to a whole height of
yeah.
another level of confidence. So
Yeah.
yes, it does do something for me and it continues to allow me to walk in this confidence. And that's what makes me feel good and to continue to build me up. But also, what I recognize is I need my daily devotion.
Yeah.
I've been missing some of that because I haven't been doing it regularly. So, women, if you hear me, listen, Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
It is okay. We're putting ourselves in positions where we're thinking about doing a lot. We're going through healing journeys. We're trying
Yeah.
to heal from trauma and all these different things. So give yourself just a little bit of grace. But you use the word restorative. Why
Mhm.
restorative?
Yeah. When we are in these various roles, as you named, we are constantly on an outpouring of ourselves. So when we engage in self care, that is allowing us to fill and restore that energy that we have poured out throughout our day, throughout our week. It's allowing us to kind of pour back into ourselves. So that is why I use the word restorative to describe self care and what it should, the goal of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know women who have a certain candle or something like lavender. I love
Mhm.
lavender. I love floral smells. So
Uh-huh.
sometimes I think a part of my self-care, I don't know if it is,
Mhm.
but I like the smell of fresh flowers.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes I can go to, like, I don't have to buy myself an expensive bouquet, but I may go to my local grocery store and buy me like $20 flowers or something like that and put them in a vase. And when I walk in, it just kind of fills the room.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a little bit of self-care. I guess I don't call it
Absolutely.
self-care because you know why?
Yeah.
You know why, Jody? I don't call it self-care because the way that we identify self-care is not restorative. We identify it with us going to go get mani, pedis, our hair done,
Yeah.
makeup done, all these different things, which those are
Yeah.
all good. So don't be coming in the
Yeah.
comments giving me clap back, homegirl. Don't do that because I'm a clap
Yeah.
back. But
Yeah.
the reality of it, this is a doctor, okay? Like the reality
Mhm.
of it is that that is not, we have to understand that. So I'm glad that you broke that down for us because
Mhm.
it's much needed. So, journaling, um, all these different things that you were saying. So you said something too. You said something about filling your cup, pouring into yourself.
Mhm.
How are you helping women identify when it's time for them to pour into themselves?
Mhm. It's always time to pour into yourself. There's never a wrong time to do that. So I encourage that on a regular basis. You don't have to get to the point where you're burnt out. You don't have to get to the point where you're just like
Listen.
at your wits end. So you need to be doing that on a regular basis. So I do talk about that, in our initial sessions, like what are you doing to pour back into yourself? If you're doing that on a continual basis, then your cup stays full. It's almost like your bank account. You can't make withdrawals after withdrawal and don't put any deposits in, so you gotta keep that flow. You're making withdrawals, you gotta make deposits as well. It's the same concept.
You better come on, Dr. Jody. You better come on. Okay, come on and give us these analogies, honey. I'm here for the analogies. Come on. Listen, you can't
Yeah, I
be
love a good analogy. So
listen, you
yeah,
can't be withdrawing stuff. Honey, you ain't put no deposit.
yep. Got to make that
Girl,
deposit.
come on. I'm, I'm here for that. So when you think about, okay, so thinking about pouring, okay, because I've heard that before. I've heard people say, certain people that would say to me, Brandy, who's pouring into you? Because I do pour a lot out. I give a lot.
Yeah.
I love to help people. I love to give people makeup tips. I love to, people come ask me like, how did you put this outfit together? I
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like the women of showcasing their empowerment and their confidence, like I'm so for that. Like I'm like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am. It's the color for me in the hair. But when you think
Uh-huh.
about pouring, what are some routines that we can start putting into practice today to start adding what I would consider to be the pouring of the day? Like this is your daily pour because you
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm just going to go back to those basic self-care activities you need to do just on the basic level. So making sure that you are getting adequate sleep, practicing, what I call sleep hygiene. So, making sure that you are setting a bedtime routine where you're getting at least or close to 8 hours of sleep, that you have your cell phone, no ambient light on in your room. You're not scrolling through Facebook before you fall asleep. You don't have the TV on. You are not drinking any caffeine. I see you. I'm guilty of that too. So I'm not going to say I have mastered this. Um, ask my husband. He's usually falling asleep before me. I'm over here, laughing at something on social media.
Girl,
So,
okay.
it is something that I am working on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, making sure that you are getting adequate sleep, eating, nutritious foods. Those are the base ways that you can pour into yourself. And I think, to your point, identifying or surrounding yourself with other people who also, pour into you, whether that be, your significant other, whether that be
Mhm.
someone in your church family, or whether that be a friend, someone that you have that relationship with that understands the importance of pouring into your cup the way that you may pour into theirs.
Yeah.
So those are some things that I recommend. As well as, too, I know we've talked about a lot about like sleep, nutrition, and physical activity, but
Mhm.
also rest. Making rest a part of your routine.
Yeah.
I don't work for corporate America anymore, so I have a lot of flexibility with my
Yeah.
schedule. And in theory, I'm like, oh yeah, I can take off whenever I want to. In reality, I can do better at scheduling rest into my
Yeah.
routine. So what I would tell people who, are working for a corporation where you have paid time off is to schedule that throughout your year. Most people will bank that time off to the end of the year, and they struggle through, the remainder of the year unless there's a sick day or their kid is
Mhm.
sick or they happen to go on a trip. But making that part of your routine. So what I've tried to get better about in my own life is making rest more routine. So scheduling off a Friday every other,
Yeah.
week, or taking off, a week straight, every 3 to 4, once a
Yeah.
quarter, trying to make it more of a routine so that I'm not working myself to the point of burnout, because that is very easy to do. So I think that's another way that we can look at pouring into our cups, is making sure that we're getting rest and making that part of our routine.
Yeah, that's good because I have a good friend of mine's. She actually schedules throughout the year 1 Friday a
Mm-hmm.
month to be off,
Uh-huh.
and she goes and gets a massage or does whatever, to sit at home and do
Yep.
absolutely nothing. But I'm also learning to Dr. Jodi Nicholson is that um rest is so much more than just taking a day off.
Mm-hmm.
There are different forms of rest. There is spiritual rest, there's physical rest. To your point, like maybe it's the sleep or meditation, breathing in
Mm-hmm.
life-giving words instead of negativity, which we're so wired to naturally go to. So
Yeah.
those are forms of rest. What I'm learning, those are forms of rest too. It's basically, it's like you said, restorative. It's being gentle with yourself.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really is. It's giving yourself permission to be
Mm-hmm.
gentle with you. You're gentle with everybody else.
Yeah.
You giving everybody else some grace.
Yeah.
But we don't extend, as women, we don't always extend that same grace to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to encourage that woman, like, give yourself, like, like, seriously, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing so much. Like, even thinking about you, Dr. Jody, you mentioned you're a wife. I know Jody has 2 children. She's also very supportive with her family. She made a huge decision to do her own practice. So how are you ensuring, Jody, that you're getting the rest, the restorative, the restoration that you need in your life?
Mhm. Yeah. So again, I just try and make sure that I'm scheduling it throughout, like being very intentional about scheduling that time off. Making sure that when I am off, that I am still not working,
Yep,
because therapy is not just about seeing clients in session. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that is very easy for me to be doing notes or treatment plans or
yep,
on the phone with insurance or doing all the other things, business stuff behind the scenes, that I'm not really fully engaging in that rest. So just being very intentional about it. And for me, what's restful for me is being able to just be at home.
mhm,
um, I love design shows, watch my design shows, and not really have any routine or anywhere that I have to go. Because my day is so scheduled
yeah,
with clients and kids and dinner and everything, I'm always thinking of, okay, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do
yeah,
next? So not just the physical rest, but the mental rest is important for me,
yes.
to be able to be in a state where I don't have to think about what's next. I can just be in this moment and let that be enough. And I think that for me is what helps me to have that restoration.
Come on, Dr.
Yeah.
Jody. Come on. Because let me tell you, the busyness I be creating, child, listen, I be like, Lord, I just want I want unstructured time.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Unstructured time. Yeah.
I want unstructured time. I don't want to be on
Yeah.
a time clock. But you know what, Jody? You know what happens is that I start to feel guilty because it's not
Mm,
structured.
yeah. Yeah. I do have clients that they feel, well, that's unproductive. They think that rest is unproductive. I'm supposed to be doing something. It's like, even Jesus rested in the wilderness. So you need to, it, it's necessary. It is necessary for you to rest. And if you don't, it's going to come at a cost.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, giving yourself, like you said, that permission, that grace,
Yeah.
and every moment of our day is not supposed to be filled with doing something.
Oh my gosh, girl. I was woo, girl, you said a word right there, honey. So there was a pastor, Pastor Robert White. He
Hmm.
talked about, it's so crazy that you said that, but it's not, because he talked about how um um the tenured saints would say the devil is busy. And he was
Hmm.
like, "But you busy making your schedule busy. What does that say
Yeah.
about you?" I was like, "Now come." I said, "Now Jesus, now
Yes.
listen." I said, "Now hold." I said,
Yeah.
"Now hold on." He talking about, if you running around saying that the best devil is busy, but your calendar is always booked,
Yep.
what is that? I said, "Listen, you
Yeah.
ain't said nothing. I'm about to get busy and quit making myself busy because I ain't got to
Yeah.
be doing that." Tiffany said, "Amen." She talking about unstructured rest, honey. Yes,
Yes.
all the
We all need
things.
that.
Yes,
Yes.
honey. Like we just, I don't know. Like to your point, there is a guiltiness because you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm a mom. I should be doing something. I should be doing something with the kids, or I should be doing this
Hmm.
and doing that. And so, and my mind does go into that. So, thinking about like the identity and the role
Hmm.
that I play, what happens is when I
Hmm.
get into unstructured rest, I start to think like, well, then I'm not a good mom.
Hmm.
I'm the kid's hair needs to be done. And this is real life for me, y'all. I
Yeah.
had a moment, a moment, a breakdown moment that I had took Kylie and Michaela to go swimming. And it was a week later when I finally washed their hair. I
Hmm.
literally teared up because I felt so guilty as a mom. But to your
Hmm.
point, when you say when you have that support rest and you have
Hmm.
that mental emotional rest, I went to
Yeah.
one of my girlfriends who's a mom of two little girls, and
Mhm.
she was just like, "Girl, do you know how many times I done took the girls swimming?" And she has two girls, and she was like, "Do you know how many times I done took my girls swimming and didn't wash their hair for almost 2 weeks?" What?
Yeah.
She was just like,
Yeah.
"Girl," but it put me at ease because
Mhm.
I wasn't by myself.
Yeah.
And the reason why I started this podcast was because I wanted other women to be at rest that, girl,
Mhm.
you ain't by yourself.
Yeah.
You are not alone. And so, do you find, Jodi, that some of your clients feel like that they're by themselves?
I think so, or not maybe that they're by themselves, that they have this illusion that other moms or other women are they've got it all
Oh,
together and that they don't. So I think you have a beautiful example of being able to have someone who you can be vulnerable with and say, "Hey, I didn't wash my girl's hair for a week," and instead of that being met with judgment, she was able to also, share and kind of help you give yourself permission to not be so hard on yourself about that. So I think the more that women can be real with one
yeah.
another, and these podcasts are a great way for that. We can take down this facade, this illusion of the perfect mom, the perfect wife. It doesn't exist.
Girl.
And we're not doing ourselves any good. We're not doing our children any good by trying to keep up this illusion. I know the biggest thing for me that helps me to remind myself to give myself grace and just to be real in these moments is I have a daughter and I don't want to model something for her where she sees that or believes that, oh, mom never had a bad day or she always had it together. She always had this. I want her to see me like, mommy has bad days. Mommy, every day's not easy and model for her, but this is how you work through that.
Yeah.
So that when she experiences that, because she will, that she doesn't feel any less than
Ugh,
or feel inadequate. And that she also, if I've modeled it appropriately, she feels like she has the tools on how to handle it for herself. So I think about that. I'm doing this for myself first,
yeah.
but also, I have a daughter that is one day, potentially going to be a wife or a mother. Even if she's not, she's going to grow up to be a woman. So I don't want to present this false self. I want her to see the real, and it's not always pretty, but
Mhm.
but we do our best, and that's really all that any of us can do.
Girl, 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 you don't say, girl. Listen, you don't said a mouthful. Like, girl, everything you said, your girl is over here dealing with. Because, like, when I
Yeah,
think about it, because I have two girls. Well, I have three
yeah,
girls,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there are. I have gotten to a place. Therapy has really, uh, Lord, therapy has made me something else. I'm not always a thug all my life, but I therapy has allowed me, or it has given me permission, or it just this permission that I needed to be okay with crying in front of my kids or
Hmm.
apologizing to them when I yell. Not because the
Yeah,
yelling came from a different place. It didn't come
yeah.
from I'm trying to correct you. It came from I'm angry and I can't, like
Hmm.
it came from an unnecessary place. And I
Hmm.
recognize that in apologizing to them, so that
Hmm.
they can know how to handle when they're triggered, and
Yeah.
how your triggering could affect somebody else,
Hmm.
and the sometimes the consequences of the triggering that may affect somebody else. And I'm crying in front of my kids. I'm worshiping in front of my kids. I'm
Yeah.
crying out to God in front of the kids. One time I think
Yeah.
Kylie handed me some tissue, like,
Uh-huh.
girl, what you mom, you it's gonna be, and then she tapping me on my back, mom, it's gonna be okay, I promise.
Aw.
So like having those moments as a mom, I think it's I'm gonna cry a little bit, y'all.
That's
But
okay.
I think it's very, very, very important for the
Mhm.
mom to hear that
Mhm.
you are absolutely giving your best. You're absolutely
Mhm.
doing that. And you're going to grow and evolve from that as well.
Yeah.
From the place that you thought you weren't your best, you're going to go to another level of your best, and you're still going to sometimes think you're not doing your best, but you
Yeah.
really are. And you're trying
Mhm.
to heal from the things
Yeah.
that we got from our parents, and still
Yes.
parenting children and still
Yeah.
being a spouse. Lord,
Yeah.
if you don't get anything out of this podcast, out of this episode, give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Please, I am begging you. Please give yourself some grace. Jodi, this was like you all that in a bag of chips. Like
Oh,
I absolutely love you, and I love
I appreciate that.
being in the space that you two are in these roles, so you can truly identify with these women and
Mhm.
understand all the facets of things. So I appreciate you being raw and authentic with us. Before we drop, I want people to know how they can get a hold of you, and please spell it out if you can, because some people may
Yes.
not, names, different spelling, and all the different. How can people
Yes.
get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you can reach me by phone at 682-463-1012. I'm going to give my website instead of my email because my email is ridiculously long. My website, you can locate me at drnicholson at pathwaystohealing.net. Actually, that was my email address, so I lied. That you can reach me by email. My website is an abbreviated version of that, and it's Pathways to Healing, the number two. So Pathways, PATHWAYS, the number two, Healing, HEALING.net. That will connect you with my website. From there, you can learn more about me and my practice, other areas that I specialize in, also access to my calendar if you would like to schedule. I do offer a free 15-minute consultation just to kind of see if we'd be a good fit if you want to proceed with counseling. So I do make myself available for that. I'm not on any social media platforms. So those are the two ways, either or three ways, by phone, email, or by my website that you can reach me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Jodi Nicholson. Thank you for being here with us. I'm sure we'll probably get some questions after replay watching and all the different things, and I'll be sure to send that to you. But I thought this was so good. Thank you for your wisdom, your practicing. I appreciate you not only as a friend, but appreciate the work that you're doing, because it is much needed. So thank you so much. I want to thank all of the people who joined us today. Our next guest is going to be a good friend of ours, Tracy
So,
Williams.
oh,
He
yay.
is going to be on next week. I'm so excited to have her here. We're really going to be talking about she is a black female who is just killing it. And
Yes.
when we talk about roles taken on, this woman is taking on roles and taking on challenges, but also as a black woman in leadership, just the things that she's being challenged with. And I'm going to have her come and talk to us, talk to you, who are in leadership, and some of the challenges that we're facing, and how she's overcoming those things and having a support system, and just all the things. So it's going to be good. Join me next Wednesday at 6:30. Don't miss it. You don't want to miss it. Such a powerhouse, and all the things that she's doing. First of things, and just she's just Jodi, you know her, but
She is a trailblazer. She's awesome. I can't wait to tune in.
yes. So I will see y'all next week at 6:30 Central Standard Time. And y'all have a wonderful night. Thank y'all for
Mhm.
joining us.